we'll move on to the next question, which is about the Swiss Cottage Avenue Road development.
Thanks very much, Andrew. I believe this is your question, and I think the crucial point to make is that this is a decision for Camden, and a borough that is not within my control, or indeed the control of the Conservative Party. It is up to them to decide what they want to do, and I would urge local people who feel strongly about this matter to make representations to them.
So, Member Boff.
Thank you, Chair. So, Mr. Mayor, would you therefore, what would be your view of Camden Labour councillors and planners saying to residents that actually the GLA have already decided and it's up to them? What would be your
complete
view
nonsense? This is absolute flat lie. It is up to, there is a democratic system, everybody knows how the planning process works. Camden Council have responsibility, and they must discharge that responsibility. If they choose to throw out that scheme, that is entirely a matter for them.
And would you, Mr. Mayor, ask for an update on the Stage 1 report that was received by Camden with regard to this application, on the basis that the language within that Stage 1 report inferred that a tall building was preferable?
Yes,
now, that is not the case, and I know that the planners would like to amend that. And would you like to ask for that at that date as soon as possible? And
to the best of my knowledge, Andrew, it has actually been amended so that what it says is that a tall building is acceptable in that area, given the high P-TAL ratio and so on and so forth. But to repeat, this is a matter for locally elected councillors in Camden. And as far as the best of my knowledge, the Labour Party has a majority on that council. If they choose to throw it out, that is entirely their prerogative. If they choose to go ahead with it, that is their decision.
I welcome that, Mr. Mayor, and I also hope that we will no more see any misinterpretations in Stage 1 reports. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Assembly-Member Dismore.
Thank you. Well, I've got the Stage 1 report here, and it says the Mayor considers that the principle of the development is supported. So you've already approved the building in principle in your Stage 1 report. And if Camden were to refuse it, you'd still force approval of it anyway, wouldn't you? You'd still force the approval of it anyway by calling it in, as you did with Mount Pleasant.
No.
When Camden and Islington Let me finish.
No, I won't let you finish. You're talking nonsense.
Wanted to turn down the Mount Pleasant one, you called that in. And you'd do exactly the same thing here, wouldn't you? The least worst option for those who oppose this building is for Camden to impose as many planning conditions as they can on it.
No, Dismore.
On the basis that you would not overturn it. Are you saying you will never call this in then?
Listen,
are you undertaking never to call this in?
I'm not making any commitment on any future planning decision I might make.
Exactly.
But you're alleging, if I may say so, quite wrongly, that it is absolutely inevitable that this building will go ahead because I am going to impose it on Camden.
Well, will you undertake not to call it in if Camden refuse it?
Completely
Simple question.
Untrue. What I've said
will you undertake not to call it in if Camden refuse it? Yes or no?
What I've said to Andrew Boff, who asked questions, if I may say so, in a much nicer and more productive
Simple question. Yes or no? Will you undertake not to call it in if Camden refuse it?
I'm not. This is a planning matter for Camden.
Exactly. Will you call it in if Camden refuse it? Yes or no?
Well, let's see what they do. Let's see what they do. If we had some hand,
so you won't give an answer. I think people in the area in Swiss Cottage will read that.
I think people in the area want to know what a spineless representative they have in the form of Dismore, who does that. Come on, what is your point?
You can't
do you have any influence whatever with Camden Council? You protoplasmic jelly. Why don't you? Here we go again. If you're so hostile,
Club bully strikes again.
If you're so hostile,
can we just stop for a moment, because we're not treating each other with the respect that we merit, and that goes to some extent with shouting at the mayor as well and provoking him. Have you finished, Mr. Dismore?
Well, it's pretty obvious I'm not going to get a sensible answer to a straightforward question.
I can give you the answer. The answer is that if the member, Mr. Dismore, objects so vehemently to this scheme, then it is open to him and his fellow members of the Labour Party in Camden to throw it out. That they have, as far as I know, chosen not to do. And I think that people following this debate will want to know why Mr Dismore's relations with the Labour Party in Camden are so frail and so feeble, even though he purports to represent them, that he cannot persuade them to go against this building. And that seems to me to be the relevant question.
Mr Duval, you still make, Mr Boff?
Mr Mayor, could you acquaint Mr Dismore with the number of, perhaps write to him, with the number of occasions on which you've called in applications with less than 200 flats? And could you also acquaint him with your role as the planning authority, and that to declare your hand at this stage would effectively make it impossible for you to carry out your role as that planning authority?
Of course. And the member knows full well that if I were to say anything about any future decision, I would thereby fetter my discretion, be subject to judicial review. The point you rightly make, I think the total number of call-ins is so far fewer than the fingers of one hand, let alone for a scheme that is only a relatively small number of flats. This is a matter for the Labour Party. They are pathetically trying to spread responsibility around. Local democratically elected politicians in Camden have a decision to make, and I don't see any sign of Dismore having any influence. Isn't that a tragedy? I mean, he's been elected to do this. He has no influence on this decision whatever.
Well, Mr Mayor, perhaps you could also find out how he can have spent so long on the London Assembly and not understand the absolute basics of your roles with regard to planning. It's astonishing to me. It sounds like he might have. It sounds like a political game is being played with this.
Well, you know, as I began this morning by saying, you know, I don't think this is the last session.
And no doubt,
this is the last session before I think, you know, I don't ever want,
because he does on every possible occasion.
This is the last. Sorry, Andrew.
Yeah. But it does sound like, Mr Mayor, that a political game might be played on this, and that you have reminded us that Camden are the planning authority with regard to this planning application.
Yes, Camden are the planning authority. Dismore is the Labour member. Camden is the Labour Council concerned. It's up to them. We've heard the mutterings of the medium. Let's see the ectoplasm. Let's see what they've got to say about this building.
Right, well, it all seems fairly simple to me, but Mr Dismore, do you want to make a point?
As I've been personally attacked here, I think I should say I fully understand the planning system. I've been in local government before I came here, and I've been in politics for over 30 years. I fully understand the system. I also understand when people are playing politics with a planning application, like the Tories are in Swiss Cottage, and I also have seen what the Mayor does when he calls things in, like he has done in Mount Pleasant, when it's a clear political decision on his part. The fact is, planning decisions are not whip decisions. They're not party political in any local authority. If they were whip, that would make them subject to judicial review. And the fact is the Mayor and Mr Boff are playing politics, as is the Tory party in Swiss Cottage, because that is a marginal constituency.
I think
they hope to win.
Perfectly open.
You're expanding the personal explanation envelope a fair bit there.